Hey there, everybody. So I am at home today, is my day off. And before I tell you what I wanted to tell you, I wanted to show you, because I'm so excited about what my orchids look like this year. Gotta try to turn these guys around to the front a little bit. But I am an orchid enthusiast, and all of my orchids are blooming almost at the same time, which is pretty common because I used to get them at the Philadelphia Flower Show. So they always had them bloom around March every year. And orchids are just the most fascinating plants. They bloom like 3 or 4 months. These blooms will last 3 or 4 months, if not longer. And sometimes they bloom twice a year, but not usually. So it's usually only once a year. And this is just a spectacular showing so far. And this one here is getting some new ones going on. So I just wanted to show you because it just looks so pretty to me and I absolutely love it so much. And every time I wash the dishes, I love standing here and just looking at them and not really thinking about having to wash the dishes. But anyway, I had promised I was going to show you guys what a hair tissue mineral analysis results page looks like. For those of you who might be interested, it is a really fascinating study of one's hair, which is a soft tissue biopsy, which shows you how you're actually utilizing certain nutrients that you get either from supplements or your diet, and even in other places like water that has minerals in it. And so it also shows toxic elements as well, which is also very interesting because a lot of people have these toxic elements available and they're not really aware of it. Like this person has quite a bit of mercury, quite a bit of aluminum, a lot of cadmium, and then also some lead. So we don't want to see this level to be 0 because that means somebody doesn't really detoxify very well. So we want to see some of these toxic elements as your body is constantly detoxing from them, as they're very difficult to avoid exposure to through life in general. But this is a little bit alarming how much there is in this person. And so we have to consider where is it coming from and discuss that with the client, and also ways to avoid it so it doesn't continue being a problem in their bodies, and also how to get rid of the remaining amount once the toxic exposure is removed. So there's lots of reasons why somebody might have mercury. It could be dental fillings that were made from mercury. It could be that somebody removed the mercury fillings from their mouth, but it wasn't done by a biological dentist, and so they were exposed to the mercury as it was being removed, and then either inhaled it or ingested it whilst it was being removed. So need to work on getting it out. This is like the really interesting thing to me. The first 4 minerals are the most important. And minerals don't work in isolation. So it's not like this person being low in potassium, we could like just give them potassium and raise that number. These all work together. So it's more complicated than that. But this person, just in looking at this right away, right here, this gigantic number of calcium in their tissues, which is not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in your bones and in your teeth. So this right here means that there's calcium deposits in the tissues, which could cause aches and pains. It can cause your joints to hurt because the calcium gets deposited in between your joints. So if somebody has arthritis, it may not be that there's like joint deterioration. It may be because of something like this. And what's really fascinating about this is that it can show us not only psychological issues as well as physiological issues. And that's because psychology and physiology are bidirectional. So the brain and the nervous system speaks to the body, and the body speaks to the brain and the nervous system. It goes back and forth. So ultimately what that means is that your stress levels, the way that you handle life, is directly proportionate to what kind of disease process your body could get. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. I mean, I think people know that stress is really bad for us. You know that you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're really stressed out. And that's because that stress, that mental stress, is doing damage to your gastrointestinal tract. And that's usually where it begins. So when people say all disease begins in the gut, it's not necessarily true. It's more disease begins in the mind, and then the gut is one of the first things to suffer those consequences. And the next thing is the thyroid, because the thyroid is the canary in the coal mine. And once the gut is depleted, it can no longer absorb nutrients properly, which support thyroid function. So that's why a lot of people have hypothyroid. Many people also have hyperthyroid. More obviously, the people have hypothyroid, but you can actually toggle between the two. So anyway, so this is what's called a calcium shell. Just as an example, I'm not going to go over this whole thing with you, but I thought it might be interesting to some of you who I know are interested in maybe alternative methods of health and wellness. This kind of test, before I tell you what a calcium shell means, is studying how your body is using the nutrients that you intake. If you get these tests like calcium, magnesium, sodium on a blood test, that's just showing you how much is floating around in your blood. And it does not tell you anything about how your body is actually using it, whether or not those nutrients are getting inside the cell, which is where it really needs to be to do the job that it needs to do, right? So, I actually had someone have levels similar to this, and their doctor just did blood work to see if they had like lead or mercury in their system, and it did not show up. They showed up fine on their blood test. So that's because it's in the tissues. It's not in the blood. So you have to be very careful with trusting blood work results. You have to take it maybe a little bit further. That's why we do functional testing, because it does do that. For hormones, we do a dried urine test that shows how your body is using your hormones that you're making or taking or getting from somewhere else, like foods, like soy is estrogenic, and you can become estrogen dominant by eating a lot of soy. So you have to be careful trusting blood work results. And that's not to say that they can't be beneficial in some regard, but this test, which is only $100, is an amazing functional test at a low cost. And yes, you do have to have somebody like me analyze it, and you do have to pay me to give you those results. But overall, instead of you having to do a $500 test, you can do a test like this, which gives you a comprehensive view of not only your hormones, your nervous system, your gut health, your blood sugar regulation, how that's working in your body, your infection capabilities, your thyroid, how that's functioning, how your stress is functioning, how your nervous system is functioning. So it's really a fascinating test. So I won't go on much further, but it is fascinating. And just this right here means that somebody is taking in like either the calcium is bio unavailable. It's not being delivered for some reason where it should be, in the bones and in the teeth. And so we got to figure out why that is. Is it that one of the other minerals that helps deliver calcium into the bones and teeth is not there? And that's to be determined. What psychologically this means is that you could be feeling disconnected, protecting oneself from stress, withdrawn, cocooning, armoring, numb, depressed, irritable, insomnia, and have aches and pains. So some people may have some of those symptoms and not all of them. Some might have all of them. And what's so interesting to me about calcium, well, first of all, calcium is a very hard mineral, right? I mean, if you see calcium build up on a sink faucet, it's a hard crust, a hard white crust that's really hard to chip off. Now, if you get that inside your tissues, your arteries, your joints, that's like ouchie, right? That's not, it's going to cause problems for sure. So, but interestingly, forming this calcium shell is almost like a body's mechanism in dealing with tremendous stress. So this to me right here tells me this person is under tremendous stress and is not dealing very well with it. And what the body starts to do is create this calcium shell, which numbs you out so you can't feel that stress anymore, which to me is just a fascinating mechanism of a body trying to protect a person. But this here, needs to be worked on in this person to reduce their stress and, perhaps balance out the other minerals so that calcium can be delivered properly. So I just thought, since I'm so fascinated by this test that you guys might be as well. And I thought that I would just give you an idea of what this test looks like for those of you who have heard me talk about it in the recent past. So that's what I had to say for today, since I'm home, chilling out on my day off, and I'm working on some of my clients' test results and analyzing them. And then I'm going to impart that information to them when I see them next. And man, I can't tell you, almost everybody I've tested so far has a very high calcium level. So that speaks to how stressed out we are as a society. And something needs to change here. So maybe consider it in the future if you want to invest in your health and see where your minerals are and how your body systems are working. Because it is really fascinating, and it's dead on for pretty much everybody that I've worked with so far.